Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to this session about building interactivity into learning materials with H5P and Pressbooks. This is a webinar series. It's going to be 3 parts over the course of August and perhaps early September. And the goal of these webinars is to teach you all about interactivity in Pressbooks, mostly using H5P, and how you can incorporate that into your learning materials to create a robust, engaging learning material for your classroom. And if you're a librarian or instructional designer or work at your institution more broadly, then how you can incorporate these into much of your learning materials across the libraries or whatever center you work for, to make sure that your students have an equitable form of learning material that is highly effective at supporting learning. And our goal at Pressbooks is to make valuable learning happen. And we believe that learning should be better and more equitable for students. So as an introduction to everyone, regardless of which session you are going to attend, obviously you're at the first one here, which is being recorded. So hello to everyone in the recording as well. Regardless of your familiarity with H5P or Pressbooks, H5P is a user-friendly web tool that allows instructors to create over 50 different kinds of interactive activities. It is offered as a plugin to everyone on the Pressbooks platform if you have an institutional license with your institution and they have an institutional agreement. And it can enable what we call active learning, so transforming learning from a passive experience to one that is engaging and rewarding. And it does this by giving the students an opportunity to learn by doing. By receiving real-time feedback and viewing their progress, students can repeat and focus on the specific sections where they need help. It makes learning more visible and engaging to the participants who are the students. For you as the instructor, the educator, the faculty member, the writer, it provides you the opportunity to create authentic and customizable learning opportunities for your students. And across the course of the session, you'll learn about how to create these H5P activities like today, where you can find these H5P activities and other openly licensed learning material in the world of Pressbooks. And we'll hear from some panelists in the next session. And then in the last session, we will hear about what Pressbooks Results is like, which is our feature where you can take advantage of our LTI integration, which is a connection between your Pressbooks network and your LMS, and where student attempts on these activities will be graded and recorded into the LMS gradebook. So those are the 3 sessions. And for today, the focus on the agenda for today will be learning about how to create and adapt these activities. We want to get you excited about adding interactivity in your book through H5P to improve the quality of the learning experience, and also to show you how easy it is to create an H5P activity and allow you to gain some inspiration and provide exposure for interactivity in your book. So even if you're completely new to it, I will explain. I've just explained to you what H5P is, but we'll really walk through those steps. First, I'll show you some examples of books that are using H5P activities extensively in books. I'll show you how you can find other books like this. And most of the session will be spent demonstrating and having a hands-on experience on 2 different activity types and how you can create them. And like I said, where you can find H5P activities to adapt, and I'll show you how you can adapt. And we will leave some time for questions at the end, so stick around for that if you're here at the live session. And I have actually, to make life easier for all of us, created this very short guide. It's meant to serve as a reference point. So if you look on there, you will see that this is a short guide. It contains all of the resources that I will be sharing during the course of this meeting. I will share some of them in the chat as we go along. And if you have any questions, make sure to ask them in the chat. So if you do have any questions, make sure to leave them in the chat, but otherwise we will get started. Oh, here. All right, I hope everyone can see this. If you can't, leave a comment. But this is the guide, like I had shared. All the resources that I shared today is included in here, and they've been chunked out into little sections so that it's easy for you to find. But really, the first thing that I want to do is to show you some powerful ways in which other instructors have used H5P activities throughout their books. So I have a couple of different examples today. Firstly is Nutrition Essentials. I think Stephanie might be on this call actually, and she created this book with Maricopa. And what I really love about this book is that when you actually click on any given chapter, you will see that there are H5P questions that interlace your understanding while you're reading the book. And in some of the other chapters, she's actually included, she's incorporated H5P activities in unique ways, not just in terms of assessments, but also in terms of just purely showing the content as well. So the reason I'm showing you this book in particular is because there are different kinds of H5P activities, whether you're just engaging with them by observing the activities or whether you're learning by doing, testing your knowledge, locating different parts of the body there's more engaging actually doing activities, and you're able to check on your results. So do I think this is the lever? It is the lever, but hopefully I can get through all of them. And we'll be showing you some ways that you can, we'll be showing you how you can create some of these activities. So this is the first example that I wanted to show. Obviously, if you are a language instructor, so we have this book from the University of Kansas. So this is about intermediate to advanced French. So what I really love about this book is that obviously interactivity is an amazing way to really engage with the learning material. So we have this chapter about fantasme et réalité de la vie de conjugale. So the realities of married life is what that says. And here you can see that this gives you a passage to read, and then it gives you some ways to test your comprehension and to see whether you've understood the passage, as well as testing your grammar and seeing your grammar skills. So here you have a completely different set of activities, like fill in the blanks here, choosing the right answer, and some other activities that students can try out on their own. And then the last example I've pulled up for here is this book from Baylor about psychological sciences and understanding human behavior. And what I think is really awesome about this one is that they're very, very long chapters, but throughout the chapters, the author, Karen, I believe, has incorporated different aspects of there are more chunked out spaces, and in between them there are different opportunities to try out these questions. You can see that this is like a traditional textbook in a lot of ways, but through this web version it is interactive and allows you to test your understanding as you go along. So here are 3 very different ways to incorporate H5P activities into your book. In the guide, I've also included some other examples that I really personally like. There's a math example down here from eCampus Ontario. There's a book here about, I think it might be a social work book about child maltreatment. And what I really love about that book is that there are unique case studies that they show, and then there's specific chapters for assessments that test your knowledge and understanding. So there's, depending on your discipline or how you'd like to structure out your book, there's so many different examples that take advantage of the H5P activities. And if you're looking, we'll dive deeper into this later, but if you are new to Pressbooks, or you're not certain of where to go to look for new books or to find H5P activities, you'll see that on the Pressbooks Directory, there are over 5,000 books. And if you actually look further, you'll see that I've filtered for a certain number of books here, but you can see that there's filters on the left-hand side where you can filter for the exact kind of discipline, or if you want to see exactly what kind of books your institution has created. There's also a filter at the very bottom for H5P activities. So you will have seen that I was interested in the environment, so I might want to click on some of these. And then I will say I want to see at least a minimum of 5 H5P activities. This will give me at least 5 books with at least 5 H5P activities under these disciplines, and you'll see that I have 9 results. So we'll come back to this later on because this will have a lot of functionality and use for when we are adapting activities. But to start, I would like to show you how you can create H5P activities. So I have created my sandbox book here. I've already taken the liberty of creating this book. By the way, if you're new to Pressbooks and you are confused about how I created a book, or confused about the directory or anything that I have shown you, we do offer introductory webinar sessions where we do go through all of this. I did just want to mention that. And here is the link to that if you would like to register for other webinars. The second and third parts of the session will also be posted on there. The second one is actually also already up. So if you would like to register for that, that is there, just to include that. So here I am in my demo book, and the first thing I'm going to want to do is to enable the H5P plugin. H5P, like I said, is a web tool, and it is offered on every single Pressbooks book on an enterprise agreement network as a plugin. So on the left-hand side, you're going to want to click on plugins. And once you do so, you will see that you will see H5P, and you're going to want to click activate. And what this will do is to activate the H5P plugin. And now what you will see is on the left-hand side, you will see a button that says H5P, and you're just going to want to click on that. And it will say, I've created no H5P content for this book. So it will say you must upload or create new content. And from here, I'm going to click add new, or you can also click add new on the left-hand side. And it will give me a consent button. And from here, I will just click I consent, give me the hub, which will then spit out the interface for me to create H5P activities with. So this user-friendly interface here will show you all of the different kinds of H5P activities that you can now make. So to navigate our way around a little bit, up top, you will see create content, which is how we will create the content, upload content, which will come a little bit handier for us later on when I show you how you can adapt activities. And you can see all of the different content types here. So there's 51 different kinds of content types. If you look in the guide that I had created, you will see that I have included a list of a link to the h5p.org website, where you will see all of the different types of H5P activities. So there are all 51 you will be able to see down here. You'll see some of their featured options, and we'll go back and forth between them because you'll be able to see the examples. I'll show you in a second. So you will want to explore some of these options. Either you can go on here, and let's say that you're interested in the interactivity of video type. Well, you can click on this and you will be able to see the example, but you can also access it all the same through the Pressbooks interface as well. So once you're interested in an option, you're going to click on this and you can read the title, who created the activity, so H5P group. You can see the description for the activity, and you can see a bunch of the screenshots that correlate to that specific activity. Furthermore, you can see when you click on content demo, it will take you to the exact same page where I was before. And let's say you want to use this activity type, you might want to try out the example first of all to see how it exactly works. I won't click on this because it's going to play a very loud sound in my ear, but it just plays a video for you, and there's different questions throughout the video. If you're interested in using that activity, you can click on install. All of the activities, if you're interested, you can click install, but they're very, obviously, these are libraries of activities, so they don't automatically load for you. You'll have to click get, and all that will do is enable you to use something. But obviously, all of this is available for you for free. If you, like I said, if your institution has a Pressbooks network, this is included in your agreement, so this should be available to you at no extra cost. If you can create a book, you can create an H5P activity. So today, to keep things light and simple, I'm going to be showing you how you can create 2 activities, the fill in the blanks and a quiz set. Obviously, there are 51 different kinds of activities, but I really thought about what could be most valuable in this session just because we only have a limited amount of time. So I wanted to make sure that whatever we use our time doing were ones that are very popular amongst the authors. So I encourage you to follow along, but I also encourage you to have a look at the different activity types to ensure that that might best fit you. In the guide that I had created, you will see that there are H5P activity types. So there are certain types of activities that give you feedback. So there are graded activities where you can where the student can attempt the activities and it spits out a grade. And in your case, if you're using Pressbooks results, that grade will be recorded into the gradebook. However, there are some activities that are purely activity based. So the whole point of the activity is that you're trying it out, not to receive feedback. So obviously, if you if you do a, let's say, a fill in the blanks question, you're filling in the blank to receive an answer. So for example, in that French book, you saw that this says to, I apologize because I understand not everyone can read French here, but all this says is that there are verbs in each prompt, in each question, and you just have to conjugate the verb and put it into, or rather put the original form of the verb, fill in the blank for each question. So you can see that there's an answer that you get. So I know for a fact, ressembler, and this will spit out an answer for me. There are some other activities like in the Maricopa book, where this is purely just a memory recall activity. There's no answer. The activity itself is for me to jog my memory and see if I can remember something. So you'll see that there's these different types. So depending on exactly what you're using your activity for, you can see that comprehensive list there. Another question we get really frequently is about the accessibility of these activities. And you'll see that in the guide as well. There is a link to the H5P documentation where you will see that there are for every single activity, you can see whether or not they're accessible, whether or not they're maintained by their team, and whether or not there's browser support. So it looks like most of the activities are browser supported, but not all are accessible. So if that is important to you for your class, then you can definitely have a look there. Keeping an eye on the chat. Cheryl has a great question. When you click get for an H5P activity type, that's just for the particular book, not for your whole Pressbooks instance. Yes, your first question is correct. That's not for the, sorry, it's just for your particular book, not for your entire Pressbooks instance. And that is because for each book, the H5P plugin has to be enabled for that particular book. If we downloaded, if the H5P hub came fully downloaded, this would take forever to load. So instead what we do is you can turn on the plugin and then you can choose which ones you want to quote unquote get so that it doesn't occupy so much room and takes forever to load. You can decide exactly which types of activities you want to have load. Does that make sense? Let me know if it does not, and I'm happy to explain further. All right. Excellent. So, like I said, like I promised, let's start with fill in the blanks. So up top, you'll see, like I said, the title. I can see that this activity is about learners filling in the missing text. It seems pretty self-explanatory to me, but you can see that there are different answers that you can input here. And if I really wanted, I can go and test it out here. So I think those are blueberries. And I press enter, and there you go. Now I get the right answer there, and then I can fill in the rest if I'd like to try. But I think I have a pretty good idea of what this activity looks like. So from here, I'm just going to click install. And this will just take a second to install just because I am screen sharing and recording. So the other thing I do want to mention is that with H5P is its, oh no. Let's see. Sorry, this is our testing network. So there are times where this happens. So let me go onto another book where I have done this before. And I can try it out there. I recently did this on a production instance, so this should not happen on your own network. Like I said, I'm sorry this happens sometimes when we're on our demo networks, and you can see this is not a real institution. This is where we do a lot of our testing, so this sometimes happens to us in our demos. But from here, I will click add new, and I should have fill in the blanks already. So there we go. So from here, I'm going to click on fill in the blanks, and you should be able to see that now I'm on the interface where I can create this activity. The tutorial and the example will also take you, the example will take you back to that type of activity on the h5p.org site. But if you actually click on tutorial, it will take you to the H5P documentation where it will give you a video tutorial. You can test out the activity yourself, and it will give you a step-by-step guide on exactly how you can create that activity. And you can see that on the left-hand side, you can see all of the different kinds of activities here. So regardless of what activity you're trying to do, even if it's not fill in the blanks and quiz, like I'm going to show you today, you should be able to see an example that works just well for you. So starting at the top, every activity will allow you to include a title and a task description. You can also incorporate the metadata for that activity. So here I'm going to say facts about Ontario's wilderness. And I will give it a CC BY license. And from here, that's my name. And let's just say this is all the information that I want. And I'll click save metadata. And now this activity will have its own associated metadata, just like Pressbooks. Any Pressbooks book you create on the platform, you can also create metadata about your specific H5P activity, which is really cool. And then I might want to include a media type. So let's say I want to include an image. And just like I saw in this activity here, this author, the H5P group, included a picture of these delicious looking blueberries. And what I'm going to do is include my own picture that I took. So from here, I'm going to find my image. Oh, I included the wrong type of image. There we go. There we are. You can see here that now I have my image of a beautiful Ontario lake. And then I will give my image alt text so that, and it's required actually, so that if the browser can't load the image for whatever reason, something else would be used instead. So I will say an image of Silver Lake in Eastern Ontario. And you can also include hover text. So the text is displayed when the user hovers their pointing device over the image. So for each, depending on what kind of activity you use, there will be different sorts of information that you can include. And that's why these examples on the h5p.org website are really, really helpful. And also to look in other Pressbooks just to see exactly what that activity is capable of. And I'll show you how you can search for those later on as well. So that you can get an idea you can get a feel for how those look. And a lot of these are also optional as well, which is really great. And for example, I took this image, but if I didn't, I would want to include metadata about that image just in case, and you would be required to do so because it would be not my image. But in this case, I took this last year, so I can use this and I won't cite myself. So there you go. And then moving further down, I will say fill in the missing words. If I want to include a special task description, I can. And then moving further down, you can see that there are text blocks, which is now where I can include different lines of text. So this is where I actually build out the activity. And you can see here that blanks are added with the asterisks. So everywhere where I want the student to type, I would have I would put the correct answer between asterisks. So you'll see here that the correct answer is browser, and alternative answers can be included with the /, and you can also include a tip. So something that you use every day. So you can see here that there is an example of that. And you can also see that there are examples here as well. So from here, what I'm going to do is I've actually already created examples to save us a little bit of time during these sessions. So I'm going to copy and paste that in here. So you can see that I put the correct answer, the most populous province, Ontario. I've given it 2 of its other Indigenous names as well, traditional names. And I've also given, in this case, there's 3 different ways to write these numbers. And I've also included a hint that says insert an actual number. And then I've also included the 3 largest parks by size. So you can see here, I have the correct answers in between asterisks. You can also add separate text blocks as well. So it doesn't all have to be in the same text block. So for example, let's say I wanted to take the last question out and put it in a new text block. I would also be able to do that. And then I can also give it an overall feedback range. So in this case, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 6 ranges, and then I'm going to distribute 6 ranges. Oh goodness. There we go. Because if they get nothing wrong, then I would like to say that they have nothing wrong. Sorry, if they get nothing correct, then I would like to say they got 0%. So you can see here, it doesn't have to be the exact number of questions. You can give it whatever score range you want. If you wanted to just do 2 and put up to 50% and then up to 100, you could do that. If you wanted three score ranges, you could. However many you'd like. Obviously, this is the maximum because I only have 5 questions. And you can give specific feedback. So let's say they got nothing correct, you'll say you need to try again. So you can add in whatever score range that you would like. And then you have these things called behavioral settings. So what's really cool about behavioral settings is that for each activity, there are different sets of behavioral settings. So for example, fill in the blanks is a question where you have to actively type in the answer. So there are certain behavioral settings that are unique to typing answers, such as case sensitivity, accepting minor spelling errors. Especially if you're in a language class, those are really important. So for example, for some of these, you can see here that, let's say, I type in écouter, that's wrong, but I know for a fact that if I type in this is now correct. So depending on what kind of class you're using, these different sorts of behavioral settings can come in really, really handy. And obviously they're unique to different sorts of questions. So if it's an assessment-based question such as this one, where you are graded, then the behavioral settings here will look slightly different than just, let's say, a memory card where the card flips back and forth. It will look slightly different there as well. Many of them are the same. So there's most of the activities have an enable retry button, or most of them will have a show solution button. And if you don't want your students to be able to try again, you can just turn that off, or if you just want them to be able to move on after they've done their first attempt, then you can also disable retry. You get the idea. The documentation also goes quite extensively into that. So you can check those out there. And then there's some other settings down here as well that gives you real control over your activities. So whatever you'd like to include on your activity or to set, those are available on there. So you can see it was relatively quick to, I'm going through it rather quickly, but it was relatively quick to set up an activity. And if you'd like to, explore and test out these different kinds of activities, then I would encourage you to do so ahead of creating, 500 activities for your classroom. But you'll find in the directory that there's sometimes they have 2 big activities. They might have 500 activities. It doesn't matter. Whatever is best for your class and whatever you feel like is most useful for you is what you should create. And you'll find that even little checks along the way can be helpful. So here's the image that I included of Silver Lake. You can see that image there. And you can see that these are now on different lines. The first block of text were all supposed to be on the same line. And now you will see that that second line that I had included in a separate block of text are also below it. So let's say that I put in one of the traditional names. Let's say that I do that. And let's say that I put in polar bear. And let's say I think there's a Toronto National Park. So you can see that I have 4 out of 5 correct. I was able to receive the feedback that I said that I would provide if I only got 4 out of 5 correct. It accepted my alternative answers, and I was able to get 4 correct. And obviously the last one is wrong. So you can see that if I wanted to, I can see the solution. I can see the last answer is actually Algonquin. And I can also retry the activity. And from here, I should be able to try again until I'm able to get the whole thing correct. And here is also the description. I did not change anything except add a period there. And you can see that that is well reflected. A better description would have been better, such as fill in the missing words that correspond to the questions about the Ontario wilderness. You get the idea. From here, it's really easy to incorporate the activity into your book. So going up to the organize module and going into any chapter. Here I am on any given chapter here. And then I'm going to incorporate up here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slide to the top just for visibility. And above, you'll see that there's a button that's called Add H5P. Once you enable the H5P plugin, you should now be able to see the Add H5P button. So from here, I'm going to do that, and you'll see that my activity that I just created is at the very top, Facts About Ontario's Wilderness. And I will click Insert. And once I preview my book, I should be able to see that my activity has been brought in beautifully. I can extend my image, and I can see all of the different questions that I've included, and it should work all of the same. I would highly advise that you take some time to test out your activities before making your students do them so that you know that they work in the way that you expect them to. Does anyone have any questions, any pressing questions? Feel free to leave them in the chat or speak up now if you have any thing that's major that you feel like I'm missing? Excellent. So the other example that I wanted to show you are about the quiz questions. So quiz types are is one of the 51, but what is really awesome about quiz types is that the quiz question sets are that when you actually click on them, you'll see that you can incorporate lots of different kinds of activities. So you will see here that there are multiple choice questions. There's a drag and drop question. So I actually don't know the answer to these. So that's completely wrong. I have no idea where the rubus of the strawberry is. So I'd have to keep attempting it for me to get it right. And then you can see that it ends off with a question about fill in the blanks. So that's why I wanted to show you this today, because this is a really valuable one. So like the other example, you can include a title, you can include a background image, you can include a progress indicator. So in the example, you can see that in the example about the example that I showed you on the h5p.org site, you can see that you can either include textual progress indicators or dots. You can see here that this is textual because it shows you that you're on one of 3 questions. The dots would just show you 1, 2, 3 different dots that you can go through. So I'll do that. And you can also give this entire quiz a pass percentage. So just for the sake of time, I've already shown you how you can add a background image, et cetera, as well as how you can include some introductory text. So I'll skip over that because we're running a little short on time, but I will include more questions about Ontario. And from here, I should be able to choose the different kinds of question types and create a set. And what's really awesome about this is that all of these operate in the exact same way that their individual counterparts would. So if I go into click fill in the blanks, you'll see that the way that I would create the activity is the exact same as the way that I would create it if I were to just create an individual fill in the blanks activity. And these questions are actually some of the easier ones to create, unlike an interactive video, which might be a little bit more work. But what's really great about the quizzes are that they are obviously they're a quiz and they're to be graded, and there's 6 different kinds that you can incorporate. So for example, I'll include, let's say I want to do true false questions instead. Let's say let's say that I have a fun question about maple syrup growth in Ontario. And from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to include a question here. Oh. And let's say I give it my question. All I have to do is type in the question, and I will say correct answer is actually false because the largest maple syrup production facility is actually in Quebec. And from here, what I can do is I can show the behavioral settings, and I can also provide feedback on the correct answer or feedback on the wrong answer. So from here, I will say the feedback on the correct answer will be the same as the feedback on the right answer, so I'll say correct, false. So you can see that you can provide that feedback. If you don't want to show some of those behavioral settings, then you can change those accordingly. You can also choose the behavioral settings for the entire set as well. So if you don't want your students to be able to go backwards and retry, then you can disable backward navigation. You can also randomize the questions. If you have many questions and you want students to just be able to test them at random, then you could do that. And you can also choose how many random questions are to be shown. So if you decide to include 20 activities in those activity sets, and you only want 10 to be shown at a random time so that maybe students don't copy off of each other or whatever other use you might have, then you can also decide that there. And then you also have override options here. If you have many activities, then you can also choose unique settings for that entire activity set. And let's say that I wanted to create one more activity just for the sake of it. And let's say I decided to try a multiple choice question. So I'll do that here. And let's say that I ask a question about Indigenous groups in Ontario. I just have to insert the question. And from here, I will say, So you can see that I have a question about who does intricate beadwork and pullwork. And I will say, I will give it 3 different options. And I'll give this second option. And I could give it one more, and I will say, there you go. So from here, I know that Anishinaabe is correct, so I will click that. And you can also provide feedback. So I will say, and here I can say, and then you can add more options. Obviously, if you have more options, you can also add in that custom score feedback range that I was telling you about. Obviously, with true and false, we didn't have that. So here I can say distribute evenly. Add a more range here. There we go. And then from here, you can also assign it more behavioral settings. I won't go through them all over again, but you can see that based on this, you can also give the overall feedback range as well. So let's say that I just gave it a pass rating of 50%. Not the most sensitive feedback I could provide, but just for the sake of this demonstration, I'll make it brief. And then from here, all I'd have to do is click create. And you can see now that my activities should work as I've laid out. But what's really great about these activities, if you worked on Pressbooks before, just like Pressbooks, you can make adjustments to these activities at any time. So for example, if you decide, let's say that so you can see that my feedback prints out the right thing, and my feedback does print out the right thing that I gave it. I gave it the exact same feedback, if you recall, except one had correct in front of it and the other had wrong. It's presenting in a way that I expected to, and it looks great, and I'm happy with it. If you're wrong and you configured something improperly, then you can always go back and change it, which is why I always tell people to test out their activities before actually giving it to their students. But also, let's say that the questions are a little bit too hard for the students, or for whatever reason, you didn't cover it in that class and now it should be removed. You can make these modifications at any time possible. So you don't have to, it's not, once you're done, it's gone forever and it's in your book forever. And now it's been printed and you've printed 100,000 books. You can change this at any point, and those changes will be reflected automatically. Even after they've been incorporated into your book, you don't have to remove the activity and then re-add them. Once you edit and fix the activity, it will automatically update in your book, which is very, very convenient. And then the next question, let's say that I say this, you can see that it was wrong, and I give it the feedback that I expect to see. And here I will say check. Oh, sorry, I did change the answers. So there you go, I'll get it correct. And you can see that it's correct, Anishinaabe is correct. And once I click finish, it will give me congrats, you passed, because I got over 50% on this quiz set. So you can see that to create activities, it just takes a little bit of practice and to look at the individual documentation. Even me, I've learned how to create all of these H5P activities by reading the documentation, by watching those videos, and seeing other people, my colleagues at Pressbooks, do them before. So there's so many different ways and ways to utilize these activities. All right, I do have a question in the chat. It says, is it possible to have graded H5P activities in Pressbooks automatically enter results into the Canvas gradebook? No, so yes and no. Yes, if you have Pressbooks results, what Pressbooks results enables you to do is to upload your book with all of its content into your Canvas or your D2L or your Blackboard. And what will happen is that your students will test out the activities through Pressbooks directly on your LMS, and then their attempts will get graded into the gradebook. But if you don't have Pressbooks results, it won't automatically record themselves. So these activities on Pressbooks in that case would just be purely for practice purposes and for students to observe how they are doing. Christopher, did you say earlier that the more H5P interactions a book has may slow down page loading of the book or impede the download and or cloning process? So I wouldn't say impede exactly, but like all web pages, if you have 100 H5P interactions in a book, then you're right, it might take a second or two longer to load, but it shouldn't take a noticeable amount of time. It should load, but obviously the bigger the web page, it may take a second longer to load. Cloning process, yes, because cloning, for anyone who's curious and does not know, cloning is a process by which a book on a Pressbooks universe, I'm going to talk about this in a second actually, a book on a Pressbooks universe can be cloned over onto your institutional network. So let's say that I'm looking at Stephanie's book, and I can see that her license is Creative Commons, non-commercial share alike. So long as I don't sell my book and I share it with the exact same license, I'm able to clone this or reuse the content of this book. Let's say I really like the Nutrition Essentials book and I'm a nutrition instructor and I want to reuse this book for my class. When I clone this book onto Pressbooks University's instance of Pressbooks, then every single part of that content, including all of the H5P activities, all of the images, everything, all the metadata will be cloned over and it will create an exact copy of that book for me. Imagine like taking a book and photocopying every page of it, but it looks the same and it functions the same, and I can reuse it. Because that is a process by which the Pressbooks software is trying to collect every single piece of information, you're right, the more H5P activity it has, it will take a slightly longer time to clone over, as opposed to if you had a 1,000-word book with no images and only text and just poetry on it, let's say. So yes, you are correct in that, but it shouldn't significantly impede your learning flow and it shouldn't affect your quality of learning, so to speak. Does that make sense? Okay, well, okay, perfect. All right, so thank you for your questions. Those are really helpful, and I think they'll be helpful for people on the recording as well. We are running short of time, but really quickly, I wanted to talk a little bit about where you can find other books to clone over, like I said, or find H5P activities on. So the Pressbooks Directory is the perfect place to do this because it has over 5,500 books that you can access across 155 institutions. I think most of you here use Pressbooks or are at an institution that is using Pressbooks. So your institution will be included in one of those numbers. And you can see here that, like I talked about, you can filter for the books that you're looking on the left-hand side. Let's say you find a book that you want to use in full. So let's say that I really like this book about story of dinosaurs, and the license is CC BY. If I want all 40 of those H5P activities to come over with all of the different parts of the book, then I'm able to clone that over and I will have an exact copy of that book. Let's say I just wanted to view the H5P activities. What I can do is I can click on that hyperlink and it will load all of the H5P activities in that book for me. So you can see here that there's these activities about dinosaurs, which is so awesome. I don't think I've ever seen this book before. Oh, look at that. This animal is not a dinosaur. So this is fascinating. So if you find this fascinating, then what you can do is you can click reuse, download this as an H5P file, and then from here, you can upload this H5P activity and use this in your book. So from here, I've downloaded that H5P activity, and now what I'm going to do is go into Add New. And then instead of going on Create Content, I can go onto Upload Content. And I'm going to click on that, and what I will do is import this H5P activity. Keep in mind that H5P can only inherit other H5P activities. So if you try to import other types of files, it won't accept it. So make sure that whatever you're trying to upload is actually ends in a .h5p. I'm going to click use, and then now it should give me this fascinating question about whether or not specific reptilian looking creatures are dinosaurs or not. So from here, it should upload. And you can see that this author has included 10 different questions about dinosaurs, but let's say that I only want to see 5 at a time, because otherwise it's too crazy and I won't ever learn about dinosaurs. And I'm going to randomize the questions, and I can disable the backward navigation. So let's say I do that and I click create. Then what this will do for me now is to take this activity that exists somewhere else, and it will bring that activity in for me. But I've set new behavioral settings for it. But I can also create different kinds of activities in here as well. So if I wanted to include a fill in the blanks question about dinosaurs and I need to perfectly spell a dinosaur name correctly, you'd be able to do that. So I don't actually know the answer to all of these, but you can see that these answers are randomized. Sorry, these questions are randomized. There's no button for me to go back, and there's only 5 questions. So you can see that those behavioral settings have saved. I will not be including this into my book, but because I've realized that my book can't be about dinosaurs. But if I do decide that I would like to include a whole chapter about dinosaurs, what I can do is, in the same way that I did before, go into my chapter, go into add H5P, and then add in my activity about dinosaur. And if I wanted to include my quiz set that I also created about more questions about Ontario, then I'm able to include all of those things as well. So when I go onto here, you can see that the activities that I had, oh, there we go. The quiz set that I have here, as well as the dinosaur activity, has been brought in full. So that's how easy it is to find H5P activities. You will see that it's really convenient because it's already highlighted and hyperlinked for you. So all you have to do is click on that. But on the, there are some books that are public that are not included in the directory for whatever reason, if the author does not want to be on the directory. You can also go to that book's, this link here. So just input the book's URL link, and it just needs to end in dash H5P dash listing. Sorry, slash H5P dash listing, and it will spit out the H5P listing of that entire book for you. So you can see here that this is on Oklahoma State, the link there, and then the H5P listing, and it prints out all of that for me. And like I said, really take advantage of the filters on the left-hand side, and you should be able to see them. And you should be able to click on the activities and see that list there. The last thing I wanted to say is, like I had mentioned before, if you decide to clone that entire book, so if I want all 40 of these dinosaur activities and I want an exact clone of this book by Dr. Burkett, then what I can do is I can clone this book, and all of the content of that book will be brought over with all 40 H5P activities. And because this book is licensed CC BY, I'm able to make modifications as I see fit, so long as I attribute Dr. Ashley Burkett. And Pressbooks is great because what we will do if we clone it over is we will automatically attribute all of the author's details so that there's no chance of you getting copyright infringement. So it's very flexible in this way. And there is a safeguard in place so that if any of the activities or the book has a all rights reserved license, it won't let you clone that book, and it won't let you download that activity. So for example, if you recall, about 30 minutes ago, we talked about how to include the metadata of each activity onto the activity. I gave my activity a CC BY license, but let's say someone decided to include an all rights reserved metadata onto their license, onto their activity. You will not see this reuse button. So there's already that safeguard for you in place. So we've done a lot of work to make sure that not only are these activities easy for you to use, but also so that you don't accidentally do something that you might not want to. So that is a very high level overview of how to create and adapt H5P activities for your classroom and to include them into your book. Like I said, you can start out small. You can also start out by incorporating and reusing other H5P activities that already exist. So long as it's an H5P activity, you can adapt them from elsewhere. Like I said, so long as it's a .H5P activity and it's openly licensed. There are also different institutions with H5P repositories. So for example, I know eCampus Ontario has a large repository of H5P activities that you'd be able to reuse. There are other websites as well. You just have to Google H5P repository, and a lot of them are available to you. And I know that at your institutions, you've probably already created a lot of H5P activities that you can create and you can adapt and reuse. So you can start out low and slow and then ramp things up as you go along. And what's really great is that we are going to host a panel session with 3 instructors who have created H5P activities for their classroom. We have someone who's created a language book in Russian, someone who's created an oceanography book, and someone who's created a book on histology images for biology and anatomy. We have 3 instructors coming to provide the panel on that, and we'll be talking about the importance of creating interactive activities for their books, as well as their experience with creating them. So if you really do want that firsthand experience on learning how this can provide value to your classroom from instructors who've done it before and who've spent a lot of time honing their craft of including these activities, then please make sure to come to that session. But that is the end of today's session. Thank you so much for coming. I hope that this is helpful. As a final note, we do offer these webinars every single month. If you don't know, we offer Getting Started with Pressbooks and Advanced Session with Pressbooks. And the reason I like to mention this is because at the first session, we talk about how you can clone content. And if you don't know how to clone yet, that's a great place to come. The second thing is that at the advanced session, we talk about H5P a little bit more. So if you need a refresher, I take questions at the end of those sessions as well. So make sure to come to those sessions. But otherwise, thank you so much for coming. I will now stop the recording and I will take any questions you might have.